Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So if the clerk can please call the roll.
Councilmember Baines. Here. Bredefeld.
Here.
Capriolio. Here. Chavez. Councilmember Chavez, are you here? No. He's calling in today, but so far he has not been connected, so we'll check back in with him. Councilmember Olivier. Councilmember Brandel. Here. Council President Soria.
Here. Councilmember Chavez texted me a couple, like 5 minutes ago, so I'm telling him that we're ready to go. So I'll wait for a second. I guess if we all rise and do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. So good morning, everyone. Just wanted to make the announcement of what we will be covering today. So today we have the remainder of the budget departments, the city council offices, and the mayor and city manager's office. We will not be making any votes on any of the motions today. We will reserve those votes for Thursday afternoon and likely voting on the budget until June 28th. And just want to remind my colleagues that you will be able to make motions up to the date before the final budget vote. But today you can make additional motions that we will be able to include in the hopper. Any questions? We're good. So we're going to go ahead and start this morning with the mayor and city manager's office presentation. I believe Councilmember Chavez is on. Councilmember Chavez? He just texted me and said he was on. Can you hear us, Councilmember Chavez? Right, he says he can hear us. Can.
Okay, how about now? Thank you. Well, good morning, Council President, Council members. The Office of the Mayor and City Manager's budget starts on page B-1. Their primary service impacts relate to positions. The department will includes 4 new positions. The first one is a community coordinator position that is being added consistent with the amended policy proposal for the Office of the Independent Review. The second position is an executive assistant position also being added, in this case to the city manager's division. And this position will provide additional clerical support. Also, there are 2 new positions. One is a project manager and an administrative clerk too. These positions will oversee and implement the proposed medical cannabis regulations if approved by the City Council and the voters.
Hey, Henry, on those 2 positions for the marijuana, is the money appropriated now, or this is only if?
The money is not appropriated. It's only if that initiative is passed, then the administration will come back requesting funding.
So why do we even include it then? Why wouldn't we just clear it up once that in the midterm review or something like that?
I'm going to defer to the city manager or assistant city manager.
That is certainly an option. There is no budgetary impact from adding these positions. They were meant as a placeholder because we didn't know whether or not the marijuana ordinances would be passed. And if they had not been passed, those positions would have been cut in the following year. So, but that's certainly a possibility. We can do that.
Well, it seems that historically, when council has projects and things that we don't have the money to spend for unbudgeted, that you guys ask us to create a list, a tier list, and then if monies become available, we work off of that tier list. And it seems like this should be into the same, it seems like we should deal with this once those monies are available, rather than build it into the budget.
And that's certainly an option, council member. We can do that if you wish.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Henry.
Sure. And actually, that concludes the service impact for, again, the Office of the Mayor and City Manager.
I have a question, and maybe this is for the city managers. What will the salary range and title of these positions be? Those positions that were mentioned by Councilmember Brando?
For the marijuana positions,
Yes.
we would, I'm looking over it. Do we have salary ranges for those positions yet? Because I think they were just standard positions that we were adding. We'd have to get you that information. We certainly can. I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get that for you relatively quickly.
Before voting on
Yeah.
this, I would like to know
Sure.
the details on that. And then, just for the record, if and when the tax initiative is passed, that's when you guys would bring forward the positions. The positions would not be coming.
No, we would have to wait until the money was actually here and received, and before we would come back to you and say, I mean, if it's actually passed by the public, then we would have an anticipation of funding coming through. And once that funding started to flow, we would have to add those positions to be able to track and monitor that. So we would have to come back to you with a PAR amendment that would, in essence, add those positions, and then a funding mechanism, an AAR in effect, that would add money to fund those positions. And it would be funded out of the money that we received from the marijuana fees or taxes or whatever they are.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Olivia?
Well, I just wanted to add that, I appreciate the administration including these two positions in this budget. And the reason why is because how many times have we sat up here, and myself included, throughout the administration of the previous mayor and this one also, and said, why are you doing this at the last minute? We didn't have a chance to prepare. We didn't understand fully. This is being done at the last minute. So I think that the administration is doing the prudent thing by including this in their budget, so that we, as a policy-making body, can see what they're planning to do. There have been times during the discussions related to cannabis and the rollout of cannabis regulations in our city, where I think the accusation that the administration is doing things last minute or willy-nilly, those accusations have come forward. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate what the administration is doing in the case of these two positions, these two important positions that really are going to have a lot of work to do. So I think the mayor was right to include these, and I think it was the prudent thing to do, just in terms of budgeting, to know that these things are coming down the road, so that way that we will not be surprised. So I wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's really meaningless if they were working. If those folks were hired and working towards that program, that would even make more sense. But it's just like last week, Councilmember Chavez made a motion to add some community service officers, and then there was another motion, I think it was from Councilman Baines or Councilwoman Soria, about positions on fire. And those were all, should money become available, kind of markers for should money become available. And that, so if they were working, it would make sense, or if it's something that once money's become available, then we add them But to put them on the rolls of the budget with no funding for them, we're just calling for them. So what we could essentially do at council is begin to take this huge wish list of all types of things that we want and put it in the budget, no money appropriated for it, but just put it in the budget. We've tried that in the past. We've created a tier system in the past for when money's become available, and it seems like the administration should work within those same parameters.
I would submit to you that these are the only two positions that we're discussing in the entire organization of 3,700 employees where there is a funding stream identified, and that funding stream is actually has been voted on by this body to go out to the public for a vote. So what distinguishes these two positions is that there is money that's going to be coming in to fund them, as opposed to a wish list, a nebulous wish list of nebulous employees that could be hired if money ever becomes available. These are the only two where we've actually said we're going to decide and we will know. And if there's no, if we're not spending money on it, I don't see the harm in including it. I think it's the administration telling this body that has voted consistently for cannabis regulation in our city. I think it's an indication from the administration that they'll be prepared to execute should the public vote go forward.
So will you support me then if I make motions to the budget that don't have money appropriated for them, but I want to move past the tier list and just put things on the budget? Should money become available, it gets triggered automatically.
That's your right as a council member. I don't know if I'll support the motion, but I know that these two are a positive indication that this administration is preparing for the legalization, regulation and taxation of cannabis in the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Henry, is there a way to get a detailed by person cost of what every employee under the mayor's office makes, their salary?
We can get you that schedule.
Say that again?
We can get a schedule outlining the positions within the department.
I don't know if any of my colleagues, I mean, the budget time's the time to find that out. So I would love it if you could send that at least to me. I don't know if my colleagues are interested.
I'm going to take this as a direction for information.
A direction, yeah. Please, thank you.
Yeah, with the inclusion of vehicle allowance as well.
So just to be clear, you're requesting a schedule of, for the FY19 budget, detailed cost by position, along with the vehicle allowance.
You know, and I want to point out, too, that information is already posted on the website per the Transparency Act. And so we can direct you to that link, and I'm happy to do that.
That might be the answer there. All right, thank you.
But for 2019, the information doesn't change? Like, are you guys anticipating raises or anything like that? I think that would be good to know.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's why we're requesting. I know that the data that is posted on the website per the Transparency Act is this former fiscal year.
And I'm not sure if you saw our response to the memo. So your budget consultant sent the question about our budget and potential increases. And I just want to point out, I'm going to read that answer to council for the record. So total PERS for our department, mayor, city manager, increased by 4.8% in the proposed budget. By way of comparison, the city attorney's PERS cost increased by 8.5%, and council support office PERS cost increased by 7.4%. So, and Henry can get you additional information, but I just wanted to make sure that, I know you've been bombarded by a lot of trade memos, but I want to make sure to call that out.
Thank you for that information, City Manager. I don't believe there's any other questions, so if we want to move on to the next. Oh, yes, we'll go to the public, sorry. Thank you for reminding. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this part of the budget? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and continue on to the City Council.
Actually, Council President, I'm mirroring as of what we did last year. And basically, it was just open at the dais and for discussion.
Perfect.
I don't have an overview to present.
He doesn't have a presentation. They're just providing the same.
And that would start on page B-1. I'm sorry, B-7.
Is it my understanding, let me, can I make a motion to completely fix the technology in this building? Okay, anybody in this year's budget? Right, okay, thank you. So let me just start then. I always thought there was a presentation. I didn't remember that we just did it from up here. So is it my understanding that currently the administration has appropriated $50,000 per council district for their infrastructure funds?
That is correct.
Okay. And then this year, we did not have the Neighborhood Streets program, but we did have the 7-week curbs and gutter program where each council district gets 7 weeks of dedicated work in their district, not all in a row, but mixed around so that different council projects can be accomplished.
That is correct.
You also have a 7-week of concrete and the tree trimming money as well, each one of you.
7 week of
Concrete
the concrete, that's what I just referenced.
Right, and also you have tree trimming money to
And-
be used in your district as you see fit.
And is that tree trimming money divided equally among the 7 council districts?
Yes,
I
it
didn't
is.
know that it was overseen at that same.
My understanding is that it is.
Is Scott in the room? I don't see him. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So we have 50,000 appropriated in this budget already for council district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, I have a motion that I'd like to make regarding that amount of money.
Go ahead.
But I'd love to hear from my colleagues if you guys have any other thoughts about council budget or, okay, all right, cool. Well, I had a list of motions, but I'm going to start with the third one that I had because it's more appropriate to what we just discussed.
Councilman Brandau?
Yeah.
If I may interrupt, also just to point out, if you go to page B-11,
Yeah,
you'll see a breakdown of each council member's budget. So in addition to the discretionary 50,000,
yeah.
there's also carryover.
There's
that has been
carryover.
budgeted
And thanks
as
for
well.
pointing that out, Henry. For starters, as far as it relates to my council district, these numbers reflect, I think, the amount of money carried over up through about April. And so we've actually spent much more of these additional dollars that if a person read this budget, they might think that I have that money in use, but it's actually already been dedicated. I'll give you an example. I have 3 dog parks that are going to become online in August, I believe. And so the money's already dedicated to them, but it shows up here. And so I think everybody should know that when we're talking about this. So I do realize that my colleagues have different concepts of how they spend their money, but we all have massive needs in our districts. And I've always really enjoyed the relationship that council develops with Public Works when we go out and accomplish projects. So I am talking about infrastructure dollars, and that's why I'm focusing on Public Works. I don't want the other departments to be offended by that, but when these infrastructure dollars, it's all about Public Works projects. It could be in a park, it could be a median divider, it could be curb and gutter. And I appreciate the curb and gutter, adding a curb and gutter crew this year. I think that's very important for a city moving forward. I would like to remind everybody that can hear this is that, and I know my colleagues all know this, but we debate a lot of things up here, but at the end of the day, our constituents really want the problems in their neighborhoods fixed. And that's a driving impulse that we always see up here from council. Now, to that end, I'm going to make a motion that the administration find and appropriate $200,000 for each council district's infrastructure fund. And if times were exceedingly tough, I could see that number being less. But I think that in the year that we're in now, I think that that's not an unreasonable request. The types of things that I would use that money for are classic public works projects. I've done some beautification projects in Northwest Fresno that the constituents love and appreciate. It adds value, it stops blight, it reverses blight. We have blight in District 2 that I want to address. And then there's tree trimming, which we've already talked about. Potholes, still a problem. And there's still things that we need to improve in District 2, and I know the other council members feel the same. So, again, it's to find and appropriate $200,000 for each council district's infrastructure fund. I'm going to give the administration the latitude to find that money. However, I do want to add, and I've talked with the city manager about this, that the other day I brought up the new creation of Fulton Street District, and I've had a couple of talks with the city manager. I realize Fulton Street has some need still, although it's just 1 year old, it still has some need. I'm willing to hear about that need. But out in the community, Barstow has a need. Almost every street in District 2, with a few exceptions that we've been able to conquer over the years, have a lot of work. And so I would like the administration to take a crisp look at Fulton Street compared to the other streets in the city of Fresno when they're looking at this $200,000. If we don't, and then that money is just sitting there on the day that we vote for the budget, I'm going to feel as if that we're still being unfair to other streets in the city of Fresno. So that is my first motion.
Councilmember, just for clarification, so this is in addition, well, less the amounts that you've indicated that you've already spent, but this is in addition to the $1.2 million collectively that the council districts have yet to spend of their infrastructure money and their Parks UGM fees from last year. So it is in addition to that.
Well, so
Besides
Jane,
the money that you've already spent, that you've already committed.
Yeah. So you appropriated $50,000. I need to see that raised to $200,000. So it's an additional $150,000 per council district to be spent on infrastructure projects that goes into that fund. Each council member will have their say and input into how that gets spent. And then I do realize that some of my colleagues have not spent all of their money. Maybe they're saving for a bigger project. Maybe they have to build a pot of money. I don't want to get into that, but that's my motion, to take it up from $50,000 to $200,000. And then I'm just going to make my other two motions while I'm on a roll here. Okay. I'd like to, do I have a second for that motion? Okay. You'll second that? Okay. Thank you. Then my other motion is to move all sales tax monies from August 2019, that's the estimated $9.9 million we've all been talking about, into the general fund's emergency reserve fund. That's motion.
What was the motion? Sorry.
Say it again.
To move all sales tax monies from August 2019, that's this estimated $9.9 million that the Fresno Bee wrote about, we've all talked about, that $9.9 million from the sales tax adjustment into the general fund's emergency reserve fund.
Second.
Okay. And I'm just going to add, while we're on that, I was on a call. We requested that council members be included on the calls questioning the validity of that strategy, and I was on a call with Moody's, so all my colleagues can hear about this. I was on a call with Moody's and the mayor and Mike Lima and the city managers were on that call, and Moody's said that that they would not think that this strategy would impact our credit rating or, our rating. But then they said it's doable. They didn't discourage us from doing it, one-time thing. But they did add that if we moved it into the reserve fund, which is what my motion just did, it could potentially help our credit rating as far as in the risk management column of the credit rating. So I just wanted my colleagues to know about that call that I was on with Moody's.
I was on the second call, yeah.
Yeah, and did they said it was fine to do it? Or what did
The reserve, in terms of the benefits and neutral, they didn't say like, because my question was to them, would the city have received, additional benefit in terms of our credit rating had we put this money into the reserve a lot earlier? Wouldn't make much of a difference.
Okay.
At least that's what I got from the phone call.
Yeah.
But since you're on this subject, I'd like to, is your motion, therefore we recognize and therefore we move our accounting practices to recognize all sales tax revenue moving next fiscal year, that all the sales tax revenue that comes in, unlike what we've been doing? Is that included in your motion?
I don't know what that means. Yeah.
So will his...
Adding the 13th month, right?
So does that mean that now all the
Sales
sales
tax
tax will be recognized, which were earned in that fiscal year? That's my question.
I believe that was the, I
Yeah.
believe that,
I think it
that is
has
the
to.
result of the
Right,
motion.
that- yeah,
That
by
is the
making
net
that
effect
motion,
of the
it
motion.
that automatically happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, cool. Did I have a second on that?
Yes, it was me.
Okay. And then my next motion then is a result of that motion, which would move all RDA repayment monies to be received from FY19. Now, this is the estimated 3.5 million. It's just an estimate, but the estimated 3.5 million that we were going to put in the reserve. If we put the 9.9 million in the reserve, then the 3.5 million that we were going to put in the reserve, I'm going to make a motion on that all of those monies be put into it for a down payment on Fire Station 18, which is west of 99.
I'll second on the condition that the city pay cash and no borrowing or bonding or anything to construct the station.
Okay, and then I'll talk about that. So that motion's been made and seconded. So Clint, then let me add that fire station is going to be somewhere $5-6 million, and this is 3.5 of that. The administration, I've been talking with the administration about this project for over a month now, and I want people to know why I would make this motion today. Now, and there's other uses that we could use this money for.
And I want to make a little correction. So we're estimating 6 to 7 million for the station.
Oh, that's changed a little bit then. Okay, because I heard 5 to 6.
Scott Mosier's here, but of course we'll go out to bid, and then we'll see
Okay.
where the bids come in, et cetera. But right now, based upon all the information we know, right now it could be 6 to 7 million.
Okay. Scott, you wanted to add something to that?
Yes, good morning, Council. Scott Mosier, Public Works. Just wanted to clarify that higher number includes some of the off-site work. For example, the architect's earlier figures did not include the cost of things like in order to connect the station to water. There's a water main that needs to be extended along Shaw Avenue. There are frontage improvements, there are drainage improvements that need street lights, just roadway lighting that needs to be added on the frontage. So that $6.5–7 million figure is really an all-in total.
Okay, thank you, Scott, for that clarification. And then, City Manager, I know that you are also doing your own research into how to bring the cost of that project down. And you're talking with city managers across the country, right?
I am. And right now, what I'm finding from the California city managers is that our estimate is pretty spot on.
Okay.
It's other cities and other parts of the country that don't have to contend with prevailing wage or construction costs are lower. Fort Lauderdale, I've learned recently, is able to construct a 10,000 square foot station with 3 bays, I believe, for about $3.9 million. So it's just...
But they don't have to deal with prevailing wage.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what we're hearing is that our estimate is pretty spot on based upon the nature of Fresno, prevailing wage, construction costs, et cetera.
Okay. All right. And that's a whole different... I don't want to get touched off on prevailing wage this morning. But I do want to talk about why I feel this fire station's that important that I would make a motion to add the 3.5 towards that project. We've come into a real...
Councilmember, I just want to ask, you know, we're going to discuss all of the motions.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you just want to open up the debate for today.
You just cut me down. Let me give you 60 seconds, okay? We've been in a log jam. Developers want to develop west of 99. It's growth area 1. It's where we have the water. It's where we have the land. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars currently on a study. All of that has come into a log jam because currently the way our rules are written is we cannot develop until we have a fire station. We're putting the full demand of that $7 million fire station on the backs of our developers, and they can't front that kind of money to build it first. Within the last 2 weeks, we've had projects pulled from the planning department because developers are saying, I can't do this project if you guys are demanding I build that fire station. So we've come into a real logjam about that fire station, but it's very valuable to the economic health of our city. It's about jobs. It's about people who are going to get the jobs at Amazon, having a place to live and call Fresno their home. We need to do this. So that logjam, that fire station, I think is so valuable that's why I made the motion to use the money for that. And so I'm open to the comments from my colleagues, and you're right, Councilman Baines, we'll discuss that more when we take the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Chavez that wants to chime in. Councilmember, are you on the line? Can you hear us? Is the volume up? He says that he's on. He's on that number. We can't hear you. Councilmember Libby, you're punched up while we try to fix this technical difficulty.
I just wanted to reiterate to the maker of the motion and also the administration that I recognize the need. And I understand our city has to grow. It's going to grow. People are going to continue to move here. I appreciate the work that's been done by planning to identify that part of the city as a growth area 1. And so that's why I seconded the motion. I won't be here when the council and the administration work together to identify the other source of money to construct the facility. But I mean, just from the administration, there's no plan to borrow. Am I correct? There's no plan to bond for this, or
That is correct. There's no plan to borrow for this.
So we'll pay cash for it.
Yeah, our intent would be to use this, and the mayor and administration, mayor's in the back, and I don't know if he wants to speak to it, but the mayor is in support of this motion if you are for the RDA repayment money. It would be used as a down payment, if you will, and then we would use an interfund loan to pay for the rest. And our anticipation is that fire impact fees could also help offset the cost. And
how long would it take to pay off the interfund loan?
It's 5 years, maximum. And it could be less. And then I asked Scott to pull some numbers for me for estimates of fire impact fees, just in case, because that will also be used. And we do think that it's a great way to grow the economic base with sales tax or property tax revenues of about $700,000 plus a year, given, and estimating 1,000 homes in an area. Just coming back of the napkin discussion that we had this morning, and job creation, and the whole multiplier effect that we've talked about.
Councilman Olivier, I'd also like to add, Councilman Baines chopped me down, and we are going to discuss this probably in more detail, but it's important for everybody hearing. My motion does not let the developers off the hook. I've got to make that clear. They would still pay their fire fee when they build. It will go into reimburse this $3.5 million that we would spend as the down payment. So we're not getting the developers off the hook or of their fees. They're still going to essentially build the fire station, but it will take time for them, and they will just backfill this amount of money that we're spending. So it's a way of tackling a severe problem that we have west of 99. And I would also add, for clarification, this is not in District 2. The fire station is located in Council President's District. But I think it's important enough. It's really, I view it, it's public safety. So it's a citywide thing. It's not just some special amenity. It's public safety. So it gets back to one of the main causes why we're here. So thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, now I'm starting to think, how much is it going to cost to operate? And if that money, obviously that's going to be millions of dollars ongoing. I'm interested to hear the administration's take on that when we come back on Thursday to vote on it. But we just have to be careful. Thank you.
And what I'll just add, and I want to thank Councilmember Brandel for looking out in terms of west of the 99. Obviously, it is growth area number one. I also want to appreciate Councilmember Olivier's comments, because I think what we need to look at is the future cost and the ongoing cost, as we talked about it in the calls with I forgot who, the second call the other day, but they mentioned that they wouldn't recommend us spending any of those additional dollars, just like the RDAs are kind of one-time dollars that are coming in with anything that would be ongoing, where there would be ongoing costs, that if we would to use them, they should be a one-time use. And so I would like to see what our plan is. And then one other thing that maybe I also want in terms of to give direction to, and I know that it's going to be growth area one, as we're seeing more in homes being built in that area, and I welcome private investment and new homes being built in that area, but I want to make sure that we're addressing those traffic jams on Ashland and Shaw and Clinton and all those other streets that are going west of the 99, because I'm the one that gets the complaints, and so we got to look at the plan to alleviate those bottlenecks that are happening. So I would like to see, before we vote on that, if we can get some estimates on what are those going to cost, because obviously if we have the fire station built, that's going to continue to promote and really push development. I want to make sure that we have the total picture so that we're looking at what those issues are going to be and how we can solve those issues for the existing residents that live there and have been dealing with that.
We are happy to look into that, but I will tell you that, and Jennifer and Scott can correct me, and we can be prepared to speak to it on Thursday, but the EIR that's being done for that specific plan will identify all of those needs. And we can look at costs associated with those. So we'll do our best to estimate, but again, we have to do a thorough environmental impact report before we know.
Good. No, and I know that we're going to be doing that, but if we can get some rough ballpark numbers, just so that this council's aware of what the needs are in that area as we're moving forward to look at additional development happening west of the 99. Okay, so Councilmember Chavez is on. Councilmember Chavez, did you want to chime in? Go ahead. Are you speaking? Hold on, we're trying to put you on the mic. We can hear you. Can you go ahead and speak?
$10 million in the reserve, but that the $3.5 million dollars that we were
Councilmember Chavez?
the reserve,
Councilmember Chavez, can you
spread across all 7 districts?
Luis?
Councilmember Chavez, can you repeat that? Start over, because it was very light. Now we were able to fix the volume. So if you can start all over, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you're good.
I'd like to make, I totally appreciate the dialogue there with my colleague, Councilman Brandow. But I'd like to make a competing motion for consideration. And that motion would be to place the close to $10 million in the reserve, but the $3.5 million that we were going to place in the reserve be split among each of the 7 council districts. I'm going to get a second from one of my colleagues to consider that later.
Great, thank you. So we've noted your motion and you received a second by Councilmember Baines. So we'll go ahead and put that on the hopper, unless you want to add anything else to your comment.
So can I get so just
All
for...
right, that's it.
So if I understood that correctly, Councilman Chavez agrees with the 9.9 million going into the reserve. So it's not a competing on that motion. It's the 3.5. He wants to divide it by council district. Is that correct? Is he specifying, does it go into the infrastructure fund of each council district, or? I mean, is it for infrastructure dollars, or? I guess he didn't.
Councilmember Chavez, he's asking a question.
Yes, infrastructure.
For
Thank you.
infrastructure. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so we'll put that in the hopper. If there's any further discussion on that, we will go ahead and discuss on Thursday. Any other comments, questions by my council colleagues? City Manager?
I want to chime in back quickly on Fire Station 18, and we'll be prepared to speak on Thursday. But for ongoing costs, we're simply shifting the staff that's currently operating out of the temporary Granville home for Fire Station 18 to new Fire Station 18. We anticipate that new Fire Station 18 will be more energy efficient, maybe reducing some cost, but it is going to be a larger structure as well, so it might be cost neutral with PG&E costs. We have to look into that. But there will be no additional ongoing costs associated with Fire Station 18.
Thank you. So, did I go to the public? Did I go to the public on this? No. At this time, I'll go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on this part of the agenda? Great. So the only other thing, I'll bring it back. The only other thing that I wanted to note, because I know that in the council budget, on those council offices that have an election, part of their monies were put into a contingency reserve. Given the fact that I've been elected this past June, I'd like to actually remove those from contingency and put them in my regular budget. So that would be a motion. Second by Councilmember Baines. Okay, so I think that's it. There's no one else that is punched up. So as I mentioned earlier this morning when we started, we will be coming back on Thursday to go over the motions that have been presented. We will have, and I will allow colleagues to put motions out until the day that we vote on the budget, which will be Thursday, the 28th. Thank you. So I think that concludes for this morning.